Hello everyone and welcome to the Hockey Up. So today we're going to be starting down a new series on the channel, and that's the top 10 list. And we're going to start with goaltenders today. Now obviously this is pretty straightforward. I'm going to be giving my opinions on what the top 10 goaltenders or any players of position are in the league. Now keep in mind these are just my opinions, and I do have a few controversial takes on this list that I don't think a lot of people are going to agree with, but it's my opinion, so don't get super mad at me for it. It's just my opinions. We all have our own, and if there's anything that we can agree on, it's disagreeing. So we're going to start off now, and at number 10 I have Robin Lehner of the Vegas Golden Knights. Now Lehner in the past couple of years has proved that he is a legit starter in the NHL. He was a Vezina finalist with the New York Islanders, and there was questions after that of, well, was he that good or was it just New York's system? And we did see that New York's system did help out Varlamov this year, but Lehner is a good goaltender in his own right. When he went to the Chicago Blackhawks, he put up very good numbers on a very poor defensive team, and then in Vegas, obviously, he helped get them all the way to the conference final. So I do think Lehner is a top 10 goaltender in the league. I think his contract is also one of the best for a goaltender. Only getting paid, I think it's $5 million a year. It's a very good contract for the Vegas Golden Knights, and Lehner should be very good for them for years to come. At number 9, I have Darcy Kemper of the Arizona Coyotes. Now, Kemper is a goaltender that sometimes flies under the radar just because he plays in Arizona, but fans that don't pay attention to Arizona or their games are missing out on how good Kemper actually is. He stole that series against Nashville, and he stole that one game against Colorado. Kemper is a legit starter. Obviously, Arizona does play a good defensive system, but they still tend to give up a lot of shots. So what Kemper does night in and night out for Arizona is amazing to me. Kemper is a very solid goalie, and if he has another year like he did this past year, I think he moves up in the list. He's one of those late bloomers for a goalie that's finally come into his own, and now he is one of the top 10 goalies in the league in my opinion. And moving on to number 8, I have the young goaltender Hart. Now, there could be some New Jersey fans that say, well, if you have Hart on this list, why don't you have Mackenzie Blackwood? And I would have Blackwood as an honorable mention, but I don't think he's quite there yet. If Blackwood has another good season, he could get into this list. I think Blackwood's very underrated. But I think Carter Hart is the real deal. I think he's the next best goaltender in the league. Hart was fantastic in the playoffs for Philadelphia, easily one of the best goalies in the return, and in the regular season he was very good as well. His underlying numbers are great. His numbers at home are fantastic. It's his numbers at the road that kind of brings down his save percentage. He did have a 914, which is still really good in a league that's starting to score more. So I do think Hart is fantastic, and if he has another solid year like I think he will, he's definitely going to climb up the rankings, especially since some of these goaltenders on this list are going to fall down, but we'll get into that later. So then at number 7, I have Frederik Andersen from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, in my opinion, Frederik Andersen gets way too much hate from Maple Leafs fans when he's not doing well, and then when the Leafs are doing well, he gets way too much praise. It seems that Andersen is either a Vezina finalist or one of the worst goalies in the league in Leafs fans' opinions. But if you're a true hockey fan that just pays attention from an unbiased perspective, you can see Andersen is a very good goalie. He plays a lot of games for Toronto, he faces a lot of shots, and he is very consistent. He did have a bit of a down year this past year, but he still put up a 909 save percentage, and he still got quite a bit of wins. But before then, Andersen consistently put up a 917 save percentage on a not-so-great defensive team in Toronto. He does steal a lot of games for them. Obviously, the playoffs isn't exactly Andersen's strongest suit, but we are just talking about, well, not just, but playoffs isn't factors as much as the regular season stuff, which is why I don't have Anton Khudobin on this list, because if we're just going off playoffs, Khudobin would be higher because he was amazing this past playoffs, but we are factoring heavily the regular season as well. So I do think Andersen is still a top 10 goalie in the league. I know a lot of people might agree with that, but I think he gets way too much criticism, and on a better team, I think he would be potentially, I think he could reach that Vezina finalist level. He did win a William M. Jennings trophy in Anaheim, so I do think he's capable of performing even better. At number 6, I have Jacob Markstrom of the Calgary Flames. Now, Markstrom the past couple years in Vancouver has been absolutely fantastic and one of the best goaltenders in the league. He's been consistently great. He steals games. He, makes massive saves. And in the playoffs, we saw that he can perform very well in the playoffs as well. I know Demko took over at the end for Vancouver there, But Markstrom definitely was one of the biggest reasons why they beat St. Louis, one of the biggest reasons why they beat Minnesota. Markstrom was fantastic. So Markstrom is the real deal. I think his contract isn't going to look great in the later years, but for now it's fair. He is one of the best goaltenders in the league. He was 4th in Vezina voting. And just if you watch him play, you can tell. If he's in the zone, it's so hard to score on him. He's such a big goalie, he's such an athletic guy, and he reads the play very, very well. So I am fully confident in having Markstrom this high on the list, even after only 2 great years, but I do think he's finally reached that level of an elite goaltender in the NHL. At number 5, I have Ben Bishop. Now, Ben Bishop could potentially be higher on this list, but his health is of concern to me. He always seems to be injured. When he plays, he's fantastic, and you could make an argument he's a top 3 goaltender in the league, but it's when he plays. He was injured for the entire return, which is why we saw Anton Khudobin take over the net, and he was even injured in parts of the regular season last year. And apparently he's going to be injured for almost most of the regular season next year as well. So when Bishop plays, he's great, and he was a Vezina finalist in 2018-2019. But the health is a serious concern, and you're left to wonder how many games does he have left in him when he keeps getting injured. He keeps having major surgeries. Bishop is fantastic when he plays, but it's when he plays. But moving on to number 4, I have Carey Price of the Montreal Canadiens. Now, Price, once upon a time, was looked at as the consensus best goaltender in the league, and I think we are removed from those days. I think Price proved that he can, at times, still be the best goaltender in the league if he's on a hot streak, but consistency has been a bit of an issue with Price lately. He'll go on a streak of 5 games where he looks fantastic and he stops everything in sight, and then another stretch of games where he doesn't look that good at all, and he seems kind of out of the play. I do think Price this upcoming season can actually climb back up in the rankings, because I think having Jake Allen behind him will make Price a better goaltender, because he's going to have someone that will push him and that will take a lot of the workload off Price, because we saw this past season and the season before, Price was simply exhausted at times. When you play nearly every game, that's bound to happen. You know, he would kind of cut corners to save his energy in some games, and we saw that. Saves that maybe we think he should have been able to make, he didn't necessarily try as hard on because he knew he didn't want to risk injury, and he knew he had to save energy. But now he can go out, he can be physically and mentally prepared, and I think he should have a strong bounce-back year next year. It wouldn't shock me to see Price and Allen potentially win the William M. Jennings Trophy together. I think that's a very solid goaltending tandem in Montreal, one of the best in the league, and depending on how those guys perform next year, they could end up being the best in the league as far as the tandem goes. But for right now, I do have Price just outside of the top 3, and that goes to show how good the goaltending depth in the NHL is right now, because Price is still a fantastic goalie. In the return to play, he was one of the best, and you see him play, you can tell he's great. But the top 3, it's really hard to go wrong with any of those guys. But moving on to number 3, I have Tuukka Rask of the Boston Bruins. Now, Tuukka gets a lot of hate from Bruins fans and fans in general, because obviously he's a bit of a hothead, and he's not exactly the most likable goaltender. But if you look at his numbers, he has been one of the most consistent goalies of the entire decade. Obviously, he was a Vezina finalist this year, didn't win. I believe he came in 3rd in voting, 3rd or 2nd. But he was a Vezina finalist. Last year, he took Boston to the Stanley Cup final, which he played great in that Stanley Cup final run. If Boston won the Stanley Cup against the St. Louis Blues, I truly believe Tuukka would have been the Conn Smythe winner. But Tuukka Rask is simply fantastic right now. But the question with Tuukka is whether or not his head is in the game. I do think, honestly, he probably retires after this season. He just doesn't seem to have that pure love for the game anymore. He wants to spend more time with his family, which I do understand. It's part of the reason why we saw him leave the bubble. So I do think Tuukka can be good for one more year, but after this year, I think Tuukka's time in the NHL might be over due to his choice. He could still play for another 5 years or so and probably be one of the better goaltenders in the NHL. Tuukka is that good, but it's the question of, is his head still in the game? But moving on to number 2, I have Connor Hellebuyck of the Winnipeg Jets. Now, Hellebuyck just had an amazing season for the Winnipeg Jets. The return to play didn't go so well, but his regular season was incredible. He was the best goaltender in the league. He won the Vezina Trophy. He was Winnipeg's MVP. And it's his 2nd Vezina nomination, because obviously he was nominated in 2017-2018. And he's been just very good for the last 3 years. You see him play, he's fantastic. He makes so many good saves. And the fact that he performs that well on how bad Winnipeg's defense is a testament to how truly good Hellebuyck really is. He's definitely one of the best in the league. I would understand some people might say he is the best, that he is number one. I couldn't really argue with that. It's just, in my opinion, the guy I have ahead of him is the best in the league. But I do understand why some people would say Hellebuyck is the best. If Hellebuyck gets a better defense in front of him, I think he would be, or I think he would perform more like it. But even now, he's still amazing. And if he has another great year next year, he could get himself up to number one. But at number one, I have Andrei Vasilevskiy of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, Vasilevskiy's been getting a lot of hate lately from NHL fans, and I'm not sure why. He just played every single minute of every single game for the Tampa Bay Lightning and won the Stanley Cup. He was a Vezina nominee. He won the Vezina Trophy last year. Vasilevskiy is just raking in awards and accolades and trophies, and he's won so many games already in his career for such a younger goaltender that he could potentially threaten Martin Brodeur's record. Vasilevskiy is phenomenal. He's so big, he's so athletic, he's always focused, he always comes ready to play. He is your prototypical star goaltender in the NHL. He just won the Stanley Cup. He was fantastic. Like, obviously, because Hedman, his performance gets talked about so much. Braden Point's performance, Nikita Kucherov, but Vasilevskiy kind of went under the radar for me. He didn't get talked about enough as far as how well he actually did in the playoffs. He didn't have to steal a lot of games, but he was consistently great for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they would not have won the Cup without him. So I do think Vasilevskiy is the best goaltender in the NHL, and to me, he just proves it again year in and year out. I do think in a couple years, Carter Hart will probably graduate to that role, but for right now, it's Andrei Vasilevskiy for me. He's simply fantastic. But that does it for today's video. I appreciate you guys watching to the end. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now.